Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today's going to be a little fun video. This is going to be more on the spiritual side and more of a spiritual analysis. So if you're not into stuff like that, if you only want to deal with the facts today, you're not in the mood for the woo-woo shit, I suggest you go ahead and click off now because I will not be convincing you of anything. This is accumulation of information that I found from other people who have also done their research. And I'm going to put some clips of some videos that I've seen and give my own personal opinion on the story. But this story is going to be about how white people were invented. Now, if you know anything about eugenics or genetics or just anything about the beginning of the human race, you know there's a lot of different theories for this. Some people believe that we came from monkeys. Some people believe that Adam and Eve, the Big Bang, whatever it is. My personal beliefs ties into some of those things loosely, but all in different ways. So I'm going to break it down for you guys. But first, we're going to do the story of so how white people were created in the spiritual realm. The spiritual connotation of this is going to be broken into two different stories. One would be from the masculine perspective and one would be from the feminine perspective. Now, of course, both of these stories are based in African spirituality and Black American spirituality. So if you are not of the descendant of either of those two groups, you might not be aware of this stuff. So I suggest you do your research if you're interested. I will be leaving, if not links, at least some pictures of the YouTube channels that I got this information from, some of these clips from. So if you want to go to their channels, you can watch the more in-depth videos that go over the details. Because for this video, I'm just going to really tell you guys the story. If you want details and, you want to look up some other stuff and get the full story, you can go ahead and click on their channels. But so we're going to start with the masculine energy story. And that's going to be for a reason. I'll tell you guys here in just a bit. But hint, hint, it has to do with the story of Adam and Eve and how they say the masculine is first, when we all know that's a whole nother story. So sit back and enjoy. This is definitely going to be a fun one. This is going to be playful. You don't have to take any of this seriously. It's for entertainment purposes only. And if you are interested in the story, you can, or if you have more to add to it, because again, this is just an accumulation of information that I found. So if you have other pieces to the story you want to add to or correct, go ahead and do that, because this is not the end all be all. This is a spiritual connotation, not a literal definition. So go ahead and enjoy. Get your popcorn, your tea, whatever you want. As this is going to be a fun one, trust me. So get ready for this. I'm going to start with the masculine, then we're going to get into the feminine because her story is a little bit longer. And at the end, we're going to do some of my personal opinions.
At this time, these surface humans all belonged to the Ebenoid tribe, and white people did not exist. This was around or before 4600 BC. The alien visitors were able to live in the center of the earth because there is an inner sun, and from this hollow earth they were able to establish great civilizations. The most prominent alien group living within the hollow earth were known as the Shiuk. The Shiuk are dark-skinned, large-headed humanoids. Inside these large heads, the Shiuk have oversized and extremely dense brains, making them far more intelligent than your average human. The Shiuk did occasionally interact with the surface humans, and were seen by humans as mystics, prophets, and sages due to their immense knowledge and odd appearance. The Shiuk had a leader named King Fukor, who had a daughter, Princess Rehia. He also had two brothers, Amo and Yushak. Yushak had a bitter jealousy of his brother King Fukor. His other brother Amo loved and married a woman from the surface, and due to this was exiled to the surface, which is a serious punishment, as remaining in the hollow earth allows the Shiuk to remain practically immortal, whereas banishment to the surface will result in an eventual death from aging, as all humans eventually face. The Shiuk are not the only alien race in the hollow earth, however, as there is another alien people within the hollow earth known as the Sinine. The Sinine, like the Shiuk, are humanoids with large heads. However, their heads are coned. The Sinine are led by one King Lamsa, who has a daughter named Princess Lucina. He also has a son named Prince Atif. There's also a third race living within the hollow earth known as the Samin, who are grotesquely fat, human-elephant hybrid creatures that are created from grafting the evil from the Sinine. And due to this relationship, the Sinine people are responsible for quelling and policing the Samin, as they are a very violent species. One day, the Samin attacked and raided Shiuk villages, stealing resources and food. Upon hearing this, King Fukor sent a telepathic message to King Lamsa, telling him that the Sinine were lacking on their Samin wrangling duties and must drive them away from Shiuk lands. King Lamsa mobilized quickly and was able to drive out the Samin at Fukor's behest, although tensions between the tribes remained. In order to make peace, Lamsa and Fukor decided to create a marriage pact, marrying Sinine Princess Lucina to King Fukor, and Shiuk Princess Rehia to Lamsa's son Prince Atif, which succeeded in creating a temporary peace. However, all was not well in the Agarthan Hollow Earth, as Lucina was deeply unhappy with this marriage arrangement. She felt like an outcast among the Shiuk and hated their laws and people, and had a hatred for King Fukor. You know who else has a hatred for Fukor? That's right, his brother Yushak. For some reason, Fukor seems widely hated. Lucina and Yushak met, and through their shared hatred of Fukor began an affair behind his back. They would meet at Amo's house on the surface to carry out this affair, with Amo seemingly cool with his brother using his house as a sex hotel. And it is at this house where he was born. The man, the scientist, the demon, the demiurge, the father of all albinoids, Yakub. Yaqub was no ordinary child, even for a Shiite or Sinin, as his head was twice the size of a human's head. Yaqub also had 2 brains, doubling his already massive Shiite brain capacity. Yaqub himself would not live within the hollow earth, as his parents' affair was a great violation of Shiite and Sinin laws and customs, forcing the new family to remain on the surface. So Yaqub spent his early years living in his uncle Ammo's house near modern-day Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Fuqor, however, soon found out about this affair, and sent his troops to the surface to find the family, and had Yushak arrested and put to death for his actions. Lucina was allowed to live due to her now having a child to care for, but was barred from ever returning to the hollow earth. Overwhelmed by these punishments, her new child, and the death of her lover, Lucina committed suicide, leaving Yaqub as an orphan in the care of his uncle Ammo. Yaqub's life is already horrifically tragic, witnessing death and sorrow over things he has no control over, abandoned by his people and scorned by those on the surface. This is where the seeds of Karakurdom are first sown. Yaqub, traumatized by the death of his parents, develops a deep resentment of the Shiite people, and eventually begins to hate all peoples with dark complexions like the Shiite, seeing them all as responsible for his parents' deaths. Yaqub begins school at the age of 4, and at school Yaqub starts getting bullied for the immense size of his head and his huge ego, hurting his self-esteem and making him hate the Ebenoid peoples even more, and deepening his desire for revenge. At age 6, Yaqub, while playing with magnets and observing the laws of attraction and repulsion, gets the idea to create a tribe of people that would exist as the antithesis to the Ebenoid surface humans. A tribe who would be cruel, deceptive, remorseless, and be lacking divinity, being a magnetic opposite of the Ebenoid peoples who were divine, kind, and empathetic. Yaqub, floored by this idea, told his uncle, "Uncle, when I get to be an old man, I'm going to make a people who shall rule you." Yaqub in this moment understood his life's terrible purpose, to make trouble, spread death and destruction, and be the enemy of all Ebenoid people, a vile demiurge to all those who walk the earth, with an army of demons at his back. In order to accomplish this, Yaqub understood that he must become a master of genetics, biology, and science. Fortunately for Yaqub, his double brains made him a child prodigy, and he was outperforming all the surface humans in school. By age 18, Yaqub had completed all colleges and universities of his nation. While at these colleges, Yaqub was mockingly referred to as the big-headed scientist. You can probably figure out why. While in college, Yaqub developed and began preaching a new religion he created, simply known as tricknology. He also wrote a holy book of tricknology, called Tricknology 120 Degrees. Yaqub promised all those who followed tricknology would eventually come to rule the earth for 6,000 years, and have complete dominion over with lighter complexions, and began having children with the women in his following. Babies born with lighter complexions were spared, while the darker ones were thrown overboard. Yaqub's plan to create an albinoid people was in motion. When Yaqub's followers found out about his plan and learned that he was killing babies in a demented breeding program, 95% of his followers lost their faith in Yaqub, apparently no longer wishing to follow a giga-brained baby-killing scientist. The now disillusioned followers jumped ship and swam to Africa as they sailed around it, spreading the Ebenoid population across the continent, where they would remain to this day. Only 5% of Yaqub's most devoted followers remained, leaving only around 3,000 who reached Patmos with Yaqub. On Patmos, new king of Patmos, Yaqub, established a despotic regime dedicated solely to the creation of his new white race. He set up birth control and Planned Parenthood laws to speed up his eugenics program, commonly referred to as grafting. Only lighter-skinned followers were allowed to have children, and darker-skinned followers were just summarily executed. When a child was born with a skin tone too dark for Yaqub's liking, they were killed by having their heads pricked with sharp needles as soon as they were found to feed the babies to. Yaqub eventually passed away at the age of 150, but his loyal followers continued for years. The Rubidoid tribe had again evolved, this time into a yellow-skinned people known as the Citrinoid tribe. Finally, another 200 years later, the people on Patmos had evolved into Yaqub's desired people, the Albinoid tribe. These albinoids were inherently wicked and carried the evilness their father Yaqub had held his entire life. It is unclear if this was the same king who sent away Yaqub, which would make him well over 600 years old. The king rounded up the albinoids and stripped them of their clothing. However, their nakedness was unsightly, so they put some aprons back on them to cover them up. The king's armies then marched the albinoids across the scorching deserts of the Middle East and into the Caucasus Mountains of southeastern Europe, where they were driven into caves and kept there by bands of patrolling soldiers. The albinoids lived in the mountains and caves for 2,000 years. 2,000 years of a brutal, uncivilized existence in the mountains made the albinoids very beast-like in nature, with them developing wild, inhuman behaviors. Taming wolves back into a man named Moses, yes, the biblical Moses, was sent to civilize them. Moses led them out of the caves and attempted to clothe and civilize them. However, once they were out, Moses realized that the albinoids began quickly rampaging across the known world, conquering the Ebenoid peoples using tricknology, which used the albinoids' lack of empathy and emotion, along with their natural affinity for lies and deception to bring the world to heel before them, building up their empires of violence, colonizing and subjugating the Ebenoids of the world for their own nefarious gains, and inventing machines and tools to cause further death and destruction, thus fulfilling Yaqub's original promise of 6,000 years of global domination to those who followed him, leading us up to where we are in the modern day.
Okay, so I know that was definitely an earful, but we're going to go ahead and get into the other video that I found, and I showed her channel at the beginning of this video, and she basically goes into more of a divine feminine perspective of this exact event. So I'm going to go ahead and play you guys that, and then we're going to get into my opinions and the things that I found that kind of connect, even though most of this is obviously, like, you could tell someone just pulled this out of, like, their ass. Most religions are really, like, a combination of different truths, but then someone threw like some bullshit in there for their own accord. So this one is literally no different. But yeah, sit back and enjoy this next clip.
Another thing to note is the message of Great Mother is not just of a woman that carries a broken heart, but more so her pain and vengeance because of identity theft, pillaging, disrespect, disregard, and treachery. If you're familiar with the Nation of Islam-based story about Mr. Yaqub, an ancient black mad scientist that created the white race, this is not based on any of that at all. Unlike the story of Mr. Yaqub, which gives only the black man credit, this is a more balanced account to where all those at fault are examined. Also, in order to understand what is being narrated in his personality. But most of his roles are predominantly masculine. So my apologies to disappoint you, but this is not a white man is the devil video. But this video is to help us examine, if the white man is the devil, then who is the father and the mother of the devil? Who is the original devil?
This is a story of ancient twin souls created as one to reflect the vastness of the cosmos and emit the lamp of the sun. Twin souls created in the image of the highest expression of divine, reflecting the feminine subconscious and the masculine conscious minds. Split into two opposites meant to complement, not conflict with one another, being called the Grand Patriarch and I, the Great Mother. This is my story, a cathartic confession of my pain, my ploy, my plight. Ancient wounds, still fresh and tainted like a stain on white. The split between my twin and I was uneven, to say the least. It created a distance and estrangement, turning my twin from God to beast. I am the bigger portion of the missing puzzle as the subconscious spiritual portal. He is the smaller portion of the logical world of ego, material matter, and mortals. Since darkness and melanin permeates the cosmos, my twin's purpose is to emit the light. But he also became the ego, which caused between us a fight. In splitting, he lost a bit of his merciful nature and began envying my grand size. He worked hard to overcompensate with deception, abuse, and lies. Though he, as the conscious mind, is not inferior to me. Like a small yet important computer chip running a bigger device, he still felt insecurity. Watching me give life, sometimes he felt unnecessary. The grandiosity and brightness of the sun still isn't as big as space. It is my darkness that holds him up to shine and show mortals his bright, sunny face. The king must sit on my lap to shine the light, but he wouldn't even have a purpose if it weren't for the darkness of my night. Temples and altars were erected. Was aware of my glory, power, and fame. I must admit, I got a little arrogant and felt I could rule alone. So my twin devised a plan to overthrow and usurp my throne. In my blind love for him, I held him close and taught his men my mysteries. I told them my secrets, and the rest is history. They pretended to be a friend of my priestesses, but wanted nothing but to cause us misery. Then began the downward spiral of my matriarchal reign. The fact that they could do this caused me and my priestesses pain. Treacherous soldiers invaded my temples, violated my priestesses and sacred space. Before you go, I just want you to know the curse is based upon a gender war, not race. My priestesses were sold into slavery as concubines, maids, and cooks. He destroyed my statues, groves, and sacred grimoire books. He erected statues of himself and acted as if my mysteries were his own. What a bloody betrayal committed to me from my very own flesh, blood, and bone. My identity, glory, and queendom stolen right before my eyes. He ruled with war, fear, and egotistical reprise. He convinced mankind that I'm the demon, the evil, the witch, and acted as if he is supreme. No wonder I've been such a... Everything dealing with my wisdom was discredited and despised. My priestesses were looked upon as hags, to be persecuted and stigmatized. His twisted mockery of what I originated became the law of the land. My priestesses and women turned on one another and gradually began to disband. He insulted my goddesshood, reducing me to only a virgin, saint, and mule, mocking intuition as lunacy and a game played by fools. Though he despised me, he still needed me. To my advantage, this fact I used, devising a plan to seduce him with an offer he couldn't ever want to refuse. Stroking his ego, massaging his lies, caressing his pride erect as a cocked gun, I parted my sacred space and promised him a mighty and powerful son. A son so mighty to carry out his lineage to stand the test of time. But really, in my heart, was sabotage to punish him for his crime. Behold, I will create with him a being that will surpass his men far beyond what the mind could conceive, that will mimic, conquer, and usurp his glory the way he has done to me. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. My wrath is so great, yet my heart is torn. Since we are twin souls, I have to hurt myself and my women to hurt him, a price I'm temporarily willing to pay. In war, there are casualties, but soon comes redemption day. He thrust me deeply in my inward parts with his ego, pride, and light. I took in his seed that will reflect his soul in white. I marveled at the new life that I carried in my womb, dreaming of how great it would be to send his patriarchy to the tomb. This soul made sacrifice in heaven to excel, conquer, and reign for a time, to teach Big Daddy a lesson and open up his mind. I labored and toiled in the grips and pains of birth to bring forth a being like none other had seen on the earth. Everyone stood in shock at the new life, the new look. Patriarch stood in shock and disappointment, but pity on the child he took. Time went by, and he saw potential in this peculiar one. He taught him his ways, then sent him one day to a land of limited sun. In the cold land, he grew strong and multiplied, becoming more rational than his father, with more ego and pride. Conquer, hunt, hoard became the rules of the cave. His descendants soon reunited with their colored kin to help them find their way, teaching all that was passed down to this power-hungry new group, refining, civilizing, and creating kings, aristocrats, priests, and troops. The darker one's intentions were to civilize and save, but way to go. Little did they know they were on their way to be betrayed. Seduced by the daughters, flattered by admiration that they gave, which was a false mask to turn them into mere bucks, buffoons, and slaves. As he has stolen my throne, rituals, and temples, it's all just the same. Because these new men will make them forget their origins, culture, and names. And what goes around came back around. He finally had to endure what he made me feel. But this pain was necessary for the situation to evolve and heal. The white sun that he raised betrayed him and stole his mysteries, which were really mine, turning him to a fallen, colonialized puppet, doing fruitless work from sundown to sunshine. It's taking centuries of elevations, reincarnations, and hard lessons that we must learn to fix the damage and heal the history as we gradually karma burn. As long as his sons continue their hate, nothing and no one will come and save, just existing in the earth realm, their prison and their living grave. So the saga continues. Our lighter offspring prevails, because they haven't mended their ways to their mothers, daughters, and children, so they will continue to fall and fail. There is hope for change, but they continue going astray, becoming the very feminine that they hate, which is unnecessary and an erroneous way. I was never meant to be him. He was never meant to be me. We were designed to complement one another as reflections of divinity. He must know and appreciate his own function before he could ever appreciate me, learning the lesson that unequal does not mean inferiority. I will renew the people as they come out of the lies, ignorance, and fear, remembering their great mother, for I will always be here. As soon as they realize it all starts and ends with me, then balance can be restored with peace and liberty.
I mean, wow, that was such a beautiful way to put that story. And there was a lot of different synchronicities in both stories that I felt like definitely did check out. And I feel like both stories help give a full scope of, like, even if none of this stuff is true, just a perspective on how people feel about, the Black community and where we are as a whole. And if you pay attention to the first video I played, the Yakub guy, he started with the more fair, more like chocolate skin tones, and then had them keep mating. And if you are more of a richer skin tone, he would basically like assassinate you. And then they turned into like a red bone color, and then they turned into like a caramel color, and then they turned into like albinos. Now again, this isn't any hate towards any group or anyone with any look or anything like that. This is all spiritual. So that's basically where I'm coming from with this. But I did find it funny because actually in Africa, I'm pretty sure not everywhere, but there are plenty of places where albinism is considered a curse and you are considered a devil, and they will do violent things towards you. To where some mothers will disown their babies if they look like that. I remember one of these videos, and I know Sydney Black, I think that's her name, the beautiful Black lady with the blue eyes that does YouTube. But there was another Black lady with blue eyes that went viral, and she was a mother in Africa. And she was asking for money because people think that her and her children are cursed because of the color of their eyes. So this is definitely something that people genuinely believe, if not this entire story. Some of these things definitely, there's definitely some synchronicities. So I did find that kind of funny. But, and we all know the story of the Caucasians and the Caucasus Mountains and the little thing from Lord of the Rings where it'd be like, my precious, and how it was in the mountains, and that's why white people look like that. I'm not saying y'all look bad or nothing, but, everybody got their own look. So I did find that kind of interesting. But the parts that I find funny is the same thing that I find funny with any major religion, is that they tried to remove the divine feminine, and the first story was very male oriented, and I like the fact that they went into detail when it comes to the fact that this isn't a race war, this is a gender war. Because I kind of touched on this in my other video, the spiritual analysis of racial ambiguity and global appeal, and why a racially unambiguous person or someone who has a androgynous look might have more of a universal appeal. Is because they're like a little bit of everything. And people say the stage of Aquarius, but no one really cares what that means unless it means like, uncovering someone's dirty laundry. Most people really aren't ready for the full truth, and where things are headed in a spiritual direction and how that will manifest physically within the next few years. So I did definitely talk about this in my live as well, when it comes to like the transgender people, and that look of them. I remember someone saying, when it comes to beauty stars and TikTok girls and just any like female celebrity, I remember them saying that they're not as beautiful as they were in the 90s. And I wonder if I could find the video. But there's like this guy who does YouTubes, and he explains like, oh, like if your face is this ratio, how attractive are you, like little stuff like that. And he basically broke down that beauty stars from like the 90s and 80s had more of, well, at least the 80s was a little bit more androgynous, but from the 90s it was more a feminine look. So if you were a female sex icon in the 90s, you had more of like a feminine look, versus nowadays it's more androgynous. And most people, guys, older women, will say when girls do makeup, we look a little bit, like we're trying to be, like you really can't tell who's who, you know what I mean? Nowadays, when it comes to race and gender, you never know, like, is they black, or are they black or not? That's just like where we are as an era. And this whole story talks about like aliens and little stuff like that. And one thing I picked up on when it comes to aliens is that aliens are all the same. There's no gender, there's no race. They're all like, I'm pretty sure it's different types of aliens or whatever, but I just mean as a whole, like when you see like the movies where it's like a planet, they all look the same. So I don't know if you guys can pick up on that, but this is definitely something that I noticed. And I think that beyond the whole slavery was a curse because niggas ain't shit, basically. I remember even Chrissy, she brought up this painting. I'm going to see if I can find a picture of it. She brought up this painting from like the 17th century or something, and it was a whole bunch of black guys in white bitches' faces, and all the black girls was alone. And this is like from, a few centuries ago. So even she had brought up some things where when it comes to historical art and media and stories and religion and stuff like that, where there's always this connotation of why interracial dating and racially ambiguous people and mixed people get underneath people's skin the way that it does. And I've also noticed that when it comes to racially interracial dating, a black man and a white woman triggers people more than a black woman and a white man. Now, obviously, it depends on who's being triggered, but I've noticed like when most people agree that if there's like a black girl with a white guy, it's more upper echelon versus a black guy. Or even I've heard jokes of African men who will date fat white women for like passports. It's like a joke or whatever. So I've definitely noticed like the connotation between the two and why one is looked down on and the other one, even though it gets criticism, isn't looked down on as much. And it's because of, subconsciously how we tell stories about how we feel about each other. And if anyone resonates with this story at all, or feels like there's any truth in it at all, it basically implies that, which is science, the science is the Eve gene. We all came from Africa, where black woman is the blueprint, yada yada. So it basically implies that the blueprint of the earth or whatever, the universe, was so disrespected to the point to where the one thing that was created to protect her became the thing, that hurt her, in the spiritual realm, these energies. And the lady who did her video that I just showed, she explained, if you go watch her larger videos, you will love it if you want more detail, but she showed like an iceberg and how the tip of the iceberg, which is funny, like tip, like the phallus, is like the masculine. That's the part that sees the light. I think of Apollo or any other sun god. When you think of light, like even in Christian religion, Jesus is seen as like the light versus the feminine and dark feminine, and how the womb is darkness and stuff like that. So if you give my drift where I'm going with stuff like that, basically it implies like how light and dark skin is an evolution of those energies just in physical form. And that is why light-skinned women are deemed to be, quote unquote more feminine, and dark-skinned women are deemed to be, quote unquote more masculine. Not obviously majority of that is racism, like that's obvious, but just the spiritual connotation of like these energies. So essentially what it's saying is, and I've always said that white people are to black people what men are to women. And that's why the black woman is the most disrespected thing on the planet, because, of misogyny war and being at that center point, which is why the opposite of that, white men are, quote unquote, running the world right now. And I've always wondered, Europe is so small, how did they conquer the entire planet? If there's more people of color than there are people not of color, why do they run everything? So I already knew there was some type of spiritual connotation, even though I don't 100% take to both of these stories necessarily. I did find some synchronicities in it. So I would definitely love to hear you guys' opinions.
Another thing to note is the message of Great Mother is not just of a woman that carries a broken heart, but more so her pain and vengeance because of identity theft, pillaging, disrespect, disregard, and treachery. If you're familiar with the Nation of Islam-based story about Mr. Yaqub, the ancient black mad scientist that created the white race, this is not based on any of that at all. Unlike the story of Mr. Yaqub, which gives only the black man credit, this is a more balanced account to where all those at fault are examined. Also, in order to understand what is being narrated in his personality. But most of his roles are predominantly masculine. So my apologies to disappoint you, but this is not a white man is the devil video. But this video is to help us examine, if the white man is the devil, then who is the father and the mother of the devil? Who is the original devil?
So disrespected person. The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. That if the white man will do whatever is necessary to see that his woman gets respect and protection, then you and I will never be recognized as men until we stand up like men.
Funny thing is, Malcolm X was actually a part of the Nation of Islam and fully believed in the story of Yaqub at one period in time. But another guy, he didn't get along with him. If you've seen the Denzel Washington movie, you already know. But another guy came in after that guy died, the old guy, and he brought the religion back. So there are people who genuinely believe this story, and there are women who do feel like, what the white man did to the black man is what men did to women initially. That's why everyone is like jealous of black women nowadays. And, black women were doing better financially than our own men. And everyone thinks it's like a race war with certain things when it's actually like a gender war. And I've heard other people say that without the spiritual connotation, which is why I know there's something, interesting about it, because a lot of different people are saying it. But, yeah, and I just wanted to add that regardless of what you do and don't believe, the reason why I found this interesting is because I would love to live in a world without, colorism and texturism and featureism and misogyny and slut shaming and all this other shit. Things that make people feel less human when there's nothing wrong with being human, And I think that the only way something like that could actually ever happen practically and not just in theory is if there's no reason for it. I remember Denzel Washington, he actually said something like the only way to get rid of racism is to stop talking about it. And even Lil Wayne, he got backlash for saying this. He said something like, don't talk to me about cops don't matter or get rid of all cops or, the Black Lives Matter stuff because a white cop saved his life when he was a little boy, and the black men in his community pimped him out, he probably won them Diddy tapes. So, a lot of people feel like the only way for evolution subconsciously, where people actually want to do it every single day and not just hashtag Black Lives Matter, people really want to make a difference, especially like in the black community and the different diasporas that we have, is if there's no reason for it. And there was another video I'm going to try to pull up for you guys where it said something like, all like in 100 years, like in 500 years, that everyone's going to look racially ambiguous, and that there will be no difference in gender because anybody can identify as anything that they want. Now, whether you want that or not, one, it's happening already. And two, I wonder, just from a scientific perspective and from a spiritual perspective, would that affect the way we feel about misogyny and racism? If there is no more race and gender, what is there to be, um, you know, evil about, like not liking other people? So I don't know. I thought this video was really interesting. I wanted to do something fun and different, and something where hopefully everyone can put their own 2 cents in. Because again, all of this is spiritual, y'all. None of this is real. So don't get your panties in a bunch. You don't have to take any of it seriously. But I do find it interesting how we all come up with our own stories, and somehow they still line up in different ways. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and have a beautiful day. Oh, I forgot to say, I wanted to end this with my own opinion on why mixed race women, or exoticals, women that may look mixed race, really get underneath people's skin, is because of not just the perceived advantages and privileges, but because of what you represent, what your beauty represents. And there are even scientists that say hybrids are more efficient than blueprints. So whether it be like plants, whatever. So, and they've actually related that, scientists, to why mixed people are so beautiful. And is this what the future of evolution looks like? So sometimes it's a lot deeper than just you have pretty hair and the boys like you. Sometimes it's spiritual and it's genetic, and it's a lot deeper than you realize. It's the same reason why some of the men in the black community feel like the white man is like the downfall to everything, and it can't get right, and they have to use women. So a lot of these things are connected spiritually, and I just wanted to shine a light on that. So if you enjoyed it, thank you so much, and see ya on my next video.